Most people think trauma is something obvious: a war, a violent accident, abuse, the kind of event that leaves scars everyone can see. But some of the deepest psychological wounds never arrive all at once. They are built quietly. One ignored emotion, one broken promise, one childhood moment where your nervous system learned, the world isn't predictable. Modern neuroscience suggests something surprising. Your brain isn't simply remembering your past. Every second, it is trying to predict your future. It constantly asks one question: what is most likely to happen next? If safety was inconsistent, if love felt conditional, if peace disappeared without warning, your brain may have stopped expecting good outcomes long ago, and once those predictions become automatic, they stop feeling like fear. They begin to feel like your personality. You call yourself an overthinker, independent, perfectionistic, difficult to trust, emotionally distant. But what if those aren't personality traits at all? What if they are simply outdated predictions created by a brain that is still trying to protect a version of you that no longer exists? The strange part is that most people never notice this process happening. They believe they're making free choices, while their nervous system is quietly making many of those decisions first. Today, we're going to explore 9 subtle signs that your past may still be writing predictions for your future, even if the painful events themselves are long gone. None of these signs are dramatic. Most of them appear in ordinary moments, small reactions that happen so automatically you barely notice them. But together, they reveal the quiet rules your brain may still be following. Let's begin with one of the most overlooked. 1. You explain away every compliment. When someone genuinely praises you, your first instinct is to dismiss it. They're just being nice. They don't really know me. Instead of updating your self-image, your brain protects the beliefs it has held for years. Research in cognitive psychology suggests that people tend to reject information that conflicts with deeply held beliefs about themselves. When those beliefs were formed during emotionally painful periods, even kindness can feel unbelievable. 2. Silence feels more threatening than conflict. You check your phone repeatedly. You replay conversations. You assume something must be wrong simply because nobody replied. For a brain that learned unpredictability early in life, silence is not neutral information. It becomes a blank space that the mind fills with imagined danger. 3. Your body reacts before your thoughts. Do your shoulders tighten? Your breathing becomes shallow. Your stomach feels uneasy. Only afterward do you start searching for a reason. Modern neuroscience shows that many stress responses begin automatically before conscious awareness catches up. Sometimes your body notices what your conscious mind hasn't yet interpreted. 4. Rest makes you feel uncomfortable. You finally have a free evening. Nothing urgent needs your attention. Yet instead of relaxing, you suddenly feel restless. Many people assume this means they're lazy or unproductive. Sometimes it simply means your nervous system has become more familiar with constant stimulation than genuine recovery. 5. You constantly scan people's reactions, a slight change in someone's facial expression, a different tone of voice, a delayed response. Your attention immediately locks onto these tiny social signals. Psychologists describe this as heightened threat monitoring, where the brain gives extra attention to possible signs of rejection. 6. You prepare for conversations that never happen. Entire arguments unfold inside your head. You rehearse explanations. You imagine defending yourself against criticism that never arrives. Your brain isn't trying to waste energy. It's attempting to reduce uncertainty by simulating future situations before they occur. 7. Feeling safe takes longer than feeling afraid. One negative comment can stay with you for days. 10 compliments disappear within minutes. This reflects a well-known tendency called the negativity bias, where the brain gives greater weight to potential threats than positive experiences. 8. You mistake familiarity for safety. Sometimes people stay in unhealthy relationships, jobs, or routines, not because they enjoy them, but because they already know how those situations will unfold. Predictability often feels safer than uncertainty, even when it comes with emotional pain. 9. You forget that your brain can learn again. Perhaps the most invisible pattern is believing you'll always be this way. But the brain is not a fixed machine. Through neuroplasticity, it continuously updates itself based on new experiences. The same nervous system that learned fear can also learn safety. The same mind that expects rejection can slowly learn trust again. But change rarely begins with forcing yourself to think more positively or act differently. The brain doesn't rewrite its predictions overnight. It updates them one experience at a time, starting with the moment you become aware of the prediction itself. Before you can change your reactions, you first have to notice what your brain has already decided is true. That's where healing begins. Step 1. Notice the prediction before the reaction. Most people try to change their behavior first, but behavior is usually the last step in a much longer chain. Long before you avoid a conversation, overthink a decision, or push someone away, your brain has already made a prediction about what is likely to happen. That prediction often happens automatically. The first step isn't asking, "Why did I do that?" It's asking, "What did my brain expect was about to happen?" Did it expect rejection, embarrassment, conflict, loss? Simply identifying the prediction weakens its automatic influence. Research in cognitive neuroscience suggests that predictions become easier to update once they enter conscious awareness rather than remaining unconscious habits. Step 2. Give your brain evidence that contradicts old expectations. The brain rarely changes because someone tells it to. It changes because it repeatedly experiences outcomes that differ from what it expected. If your mind predicts that asking for help will end in rejection, begin with situations where the emotional risk is small. If it predicts that making a mistake will lead to humiliation, deliberately practice making small, harmless mistakes and observe what actually happens. Each experience becomes new data. Over time, repeated prediction errors help the brain build more accurate expectations about the present instead of relying on the past. Step 3. Regulate your body. Before solving the problem, a highly activated nervous system is designed to survive, not to think clearly. When your body feels threatened, logical reasoning becomes less effective because the brain prioritizes protection over reflection. Before searching for answers, help your nervous system return to a calmer state. Slow breathing, gentle movement, walking, noticing physical sensations, or spending time in a predictable environment can reduce physiological arousal. Only then does the brain become more capable of learning something new. Healing is often less about finding better thoughts and more about creating the biological conditions where better thoughts can emerge naturally. Step 4. Build a new identity through small repeated experiences. Many people believe healing means becoming a completely different person. In reality, lasting change usually comes from hundreds of ordinary experiences that quietly teach the brain a different story. Each time you set a healthy boundary, accept a compliment without dismissing it, rest without guilt, or allow someone to support you, your brain receives another piece of evidence that the world is no longer exactly as it once was. Neuroplasticity reminds us that the nervous system is constantly updating itself. The goal is not to erase the past. The goal is to help the brain recognize that it no longer has to predict the future using yesterday's rules. Closing transition healing doesn't happen the moment you understand your past. It begins the moment your brain gathers enough new experiences to realize that the present is different from the world it once learned to survive. And while that process is rarely quick, every new prediction your brain successfully updates is one small step away from survival and one step closer to genuine freedom. Perhaps the most important thing to remember isn't how many patterns you recognize today. It's what those patterns actually mean. They are not evidence that something is wrong with you. They are evidence that your brain adapted to experiences it believed it had to survive. With that in mind, before today, you may have thought these patterns were simply part of who you are. But perhaps there's something else. Perhaps they're old predictions, written by a brain that spent years trying to keep you safe. The remarkable thing about the human brain is that it doesn't stop learning when childhood ends. Every conversation that ends differently than you expected, every boundary you set without losing someone, every moment you allow yourself to rest without guilt, becomes new evidence. Little by little, your nervous system begins to realize that the world it prepared for is not always the world you're living in today. Healing doesn't erase the past, it updates the future. And maybe that's a more hopeful way to think about recovery. Not as becoming someone new, but as giving your brain permission to stop fighting battles that have already ended. If one idea from today's video stayed with you, I'd love to hear it. Not just which pattern you recognized, but which belief about yourself you're beginning to question. Because sometimes, reading another person's story reminds us that change is possible long before we fully believe it ourselves. If you found this exploration meaningful, consider sharing it with someone who may still be interpreting survival as personality. And if you're curious about how psychology, neuroscience, and everyday human behavior quietly shape our lives, you're always welcome to join us for the next conversation. Until next time, take care of your mind. It has been protecting you for much longer than you probably realized.